Albert grew up in the bustling heart of London. The city was a vibrant tapestry of life. His family home, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac, provided a sanctuary from the urban clamour. He cherished the warmth and love that enveloped him. His father, Harry, a Royal Air Force pilot, was his idol. Albert would spend hours listening to his father's thrilling tales of aerial combat. He dreamed of soaring through the skies just like his father. He imagined himself piloting a Spitfire, defending his homeland. The world held endless possibilities for young Albert. Albert's childhood was filled with the simple joys of life. He played cricket in the park with his friends. He explored the hidden alleys and cobblestone streets of London. He devoured books about daring pilots and their heroic exploits. His imagination soared with every page he turned. He built model airplanes and hung them from his bedroom ceiling. Each one represented a dream waiting to take flight. He yearned for the day he could join his father in the skies. Harry encouraged Albert's passion for aviation. He would bring home souvenirs from his missions. Patches, photographs, and even pieces of aircraft became treasured possessions. Albert would meticulously arrange them in a display case. It was his personal museum of flight. He studied the mechanics of airplanes. He traced the contours of wings and propellers. He dreamt of the day he would feel the rush of wind against his face as he piloted his own plane. Evenings were a special time in the household. The family would gather around the fireplace after dinner. Harry would recount stories of his daring missions. Albert would listen with rapt attention. His eyes would sparkle with excitement. He imagined himself in his father's place, maneuvering through enemy fire. These stories fueled his dreams. They cemented his desire to follow in his father's footsteps.
The idyllic world of Albert's childhood was shattered one fateful day. The news arrived like a thunderclap. His father's plane had been shot down during a routine patrol. The vibrant colours of Albert's life drained away, replaced by a bleak monochrome. Grief consumed him, a heavy cloak suffocating his spirit. The laughter and joy that once filled their home were replaced by a desolate silence. The loss of his father left a gaping hole in Albert's heart. The dreams they had shared, the stories they had told, now seemed like distant echoes. The model airplanes hanging from his ceiling became painful reminders of a future that would never be. He would often sit for hours, staring at his father's display case. The souvenirs, once symbols of pride, now felt like relics of a lost world. Albert's mother, devastated by the loss, tried her best to comfort him, but the pain was too deep. The world seemed to have lost its colour. The vibrant streets of London now seemed grey and oppressive. The laughter of children in the park grated on his ears. He withdrew into himself, seeking solace in the memories of his father. The once bright spark in Albert's eyes dimmed. His youthful exuberance was replaced by a quiet sadness. He no longer spoke of flying. The dream of piloting a Spitfire seemed like a cruel mockery of his loss. The world had changed, and so had Albert. The shadow of his father's death hung heavy over him. As the dark clouds of war gathered over Europe, a new purpose ignited within Albert. His father's memory became a beacon, guiding him through the darkness. He felt a burning desire to honour his father's sacrifice. He decided to join the British Army. It was a way to serve his country and avenge his father's death. Albert's mother, though heartbroken, understood his decision. She recognized the same steely determination in his eyes that she had seen in her husband. She knew that trying to dissuade him would be futile. She embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her face. She whispered words of encouragement and pride. In 1934, at the young age of 14, Albert enlisted in the British Army. He was determined to make his father proud. He underwent rigorous training, pushing himself to his limits. He excelled in every aspect, driven by an unwavering resolve. He wanted to be the best soldier he could be. Albert quickly adapted to the rigours of military life. The discipline and structure provided a sense of order in his otherwise chaotic world. He found solace in the camaraderie of his fellow soldiers. They became his new family, offering support and understanding. He poured his grief and anger into his training, transforming them into strength and determination. By 1938, Albert had risen through the ranks earning the respect of his superiors and peers. He had proven himself to be a capable and courageous soldier. The dark clouds of war loomed larger, threatening to engulf Europe. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew that conflict was inevitable. Albert continued to hone his skills, preparing for the inevitable storm. He studied military tactics and strategy. He practiced his marksmanship until he could hit a target blindfolded. He trained in hand-to-hand combat, mastering every move. He was ready for whatever lay ahead. The world held its breath as the political situation deteriorated. Negotiations failed and alliances crumbled. The drums of war beat louder, signaling the impending catastrophe. Albert and his fellow soldiers stood ready, knowing that their duty would soon call them to the front lines. In 1939, the storm finally broke. Germany invaded Poland, plunging Europe into the abyss of World War II. Albert's unit was deployed to France, joining the Allied forces in the fight against the Nazi onslaught. He was ready to face the enemy, his heart filled with a mixture of fear and determination. He would honour his father's memory by fighting for his country and for freedom. Section 5. The Crucible of Captivity. The horrors of war soon became Albert's reality. He witnessed the brutal carnage firsthand. The screams of dying men echoed in his ears. The stench of death clung to the air. He fought bravely, driven by the memory of his father and a fierce determination to protect his comrades. But fate had other plans for Albert. During a fierce battle in the French countryside, Albert's unit was overrun by German forces. He fought valiantly, taking down several enemy soldiers before he was finally overpowered and captured. He was taken to a prisoner of war camp, a place of unimaginable suffering and despair. The conditions were horrific. Food was scarce, disease was rampant, and brutality was commonplace. Albert endured relentless torture at the hands of his captors. They beat him mercilessly, trying to break his spirit. They subjected him to mock executions, playing psychological games to erode his will. But Albert refused to yield. He clung to the memory of his father, drawing strength from his image. He would not let them break him. He witnessed the deaths of many of his friends, their lives extinguished like flickering candles in the wind. The despair was crushing. The weight of their loss bore down on him, threatening to suffocate him. But Albert refused to succumb. He held on to the hope that one day he would be free. He would survive this ordeal and honour their memory. Section 6. Liberation and the Lingering Scars. The war raged on, years of unrelenting conflict and devastation. Albert remained a prisoner, enduring the unimaginable horrors of the camp. He witnessed countless acts of cruelty, experienced unspeakable suffering, and lost many more comrades, but through it all he never gave up hope. He clung to the belief that one day he would be free. Finally, in 1945, the war in Europe came to an end. The Allied forces triumphed, and the Nazi regime crumbled. Albert and the other surviving prisoners were liberated. He was free. But the scars of war ran deep. The physical wounds would heal, but the mental anguish would linger. Albert returned to London, a changed man. The vibrant city of his youth now seemed foreign. The joy and laughter that once filled the streets now felt distant and unreal. He was haunted by the memories of the war, the faces of his fallen comrades forever etched in his mind. He tried to reintegrate into civilian life, but the transition proved difficult. The horrors he had witnessed continued to plague him. Nightmares haunted his sleep, and flashbacks disrupted his waking hours. He was a stranger in his own land, a ghost walking among the living. Section 7. The walls close in. The psychological wounds of war festered, deepening Albert's despair. He struggled to cope with the memories that haunted him. The faces of his dead friends appeared in his dreams, their screams echoing in his ears. He withdrew further into himself, isolating himself from the world. He sought solace in alcohol, hoping to numb the pain. But the relief was temporary, and the darkness always returned. He tried to talk to his mother, but words failed him. How could he possibly convey the horrors he had witnessed, the depths of his despair? His mental health deteriorated rapidly. He became increasingly erratic, prone to outbursts of anger and fits of despair. He couldn't escape the memories, the guilt, the overwhelming sense of loss. The walls of his mind were closing in, suffocating him. His mother, desperate to help her son, sought medical assistance, but the medical professionals of the time had little understanding of the psychological trauma of war. They labelled him as insane, a victim of shell shock. They deemed him unfit for society. Section 8, A Legacy of Unsung Heroism. Albert was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, a place where he was supposed to find healing. But instead he found further isolation and despair. He was confined to a cold, sterile room surrounded by other men broken by the war. The treatments were crude and ineffective. He was given medication that dulled his senses but did nothing to address the root of his pain. He spent his days staring blankly at the walls, lost in the labyrinth of his memories. The vibrant dreams of his youth, the image of his beloved father, were now overshadowed by the horrors of war. He was a prisoner of his own mind, trapped in a perpetual nightmare. Albert's story is a tragic testament to the devastating impact of war on the human psyche. He was a hero, a brave soldier who fought for his country and endured unimaginable suffering. But his sacrifice went unrecognized, his pain misunderstood. He became another casualty of war, lost in the shadows of history. His story serves as a reminder of the importance of understanding and addressing the mental health needs of our veterans. They deserve our compassion, our support, and our unwavering commitment to ensuring that they receive the care they need to heal from the invisible wounds of war. Albert's legacy should be a call to action, a reminder that we must never forget the sacrifices made by those who serve.